Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here today with Iivo of Arion to talk about Vultures Die Alone, out right now on AFM Records. How's it going?
It's going pretty well because like the reaction has been like really like I wouldn't say like overwhelmingly good because we were expecting a really good reaction, you know, but it was still like super positive, and of course it like raises your mood a lot when you like see those like happy faces and happy comments everywhere, and so it's going pretty great right now.
Especially after how much work you guys put into the album. I'm sure it's extra rewarding to see that people are actually enjoying, the fruits of your labor.
Exactly, like a hell of work, like seriously, and such a long journey, you know, to like from the start to the like release date, you know. So like pretty happy for that.
So let's go back a little bit. And as you look at the debut record from the band and you look at this album now, has that journey been an easy one for you guys?
Well, this album, like in general, was like quite easy actually, like compared to previous Arion albums. Like Life Is Not Beautiful, for example, was like really difficult actually. After the debut album, Last of Us, which came in like 2014, it was kind of like tough for personal reasons as well, but also because of like there was a lot of pressure after the first like really good debut album. And on this album, like suddenly there was like lots of confidence within the band, like especially I had lots of confidence when going into songwriting, especially lyrics and stuff like that. So like writing the songs came together like the songs came together like really fast, you know, like within like a really short period of time. And the album recording itself was quite easy, even though there were like funny accidents here and there because of Corona, you know. Because like for example, Matias Kupiainen, our producer, got trapped in Brazil at the start of the recordings, you know. So we had to improvise a little bit, you know. But it got funny. But yeah, so it was a long journey, but like not overwhelmingly like challenging, you know.
How is the creative process for the band going into an album like this? Do you guys assign roles to each one of you? Like, how does it work? How does an Arion album come together?
Yeah, well, basically, I'm the main songwriter, so the songs, like the vast majority of the songs, like come from me. I write all the lyrics, and I always write the vocal lines for every Arion song. And basically, for most songs, I also write the instrumental track as well, like the riffs and you know the synth parts and orchestral parts, you know, everything like that. But there are also like our drummer Topias also does that those like instrumental like backgrounds, you know, which he sends to me and asks for like vocals on top of them, like melodies and lyrics, and that's what I like work on. And going like closer to that recording phase, you know, we start working together with the Topias, the drummer I mentioned, and we like kind of go into like fine tuning those like details when it comes to like band arrangement, you know, like drum hooks, like doing compliments to vocals, you know, like there's that hit, you know, you have to like put emphasis on that and shit like that, you know. And when we go into like actually recording the album, then our producer Matias Kupiainen from Stradivarius comes in, and he gives his like ideas here and there. Sometimes they're more major, sometimes they're like really minor, but mostly it's like really easy, and like that's how it kind of comes together. And in the album recording process, actually, we take lots of like role like from the band, you know, in the like production stage as well. For example, when it comes to like orchestrations and synths, it's me and Topias doing that work, and Topias, for example, records the bass guitar always on our records, even though there's a producer hired. And for example, I assist a lot on like vocal production and stuff like that. So the other band members not that much in the creative process, but they have a really like valuable input as well. It's not like
I mean, without them, you don't have the band.
exactly. It's a fucking band, and that's kind of actually it's funny because the Corona shit kind of makes you realize that a band is what this thing is about, because And you know, it's kind of, I can kind of understand, especially these days when I'm like I feel like a more confident professional these days, you know, because of some experience, and I kind of realized that it really matters what kind of musicians you have in the band, even though they don't write the music. They really affect the record by their performances, especially the singer, of course, but the other guys as well, even the bass player.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
so it's like it's like
I mean,
really important.
you could write the greatest music ever. If you don't have guys around you that can execute that music, then it's not going to work.
Exactly, exactly. It's like 50% execution anyway, so it's like really important. Yeah.
Is there one element on this album that you feel like it sets itself apart when you look back at the previous records?
Yeah, well, I believe quite many people actually noticed that, but this album is a bit heavier than the previous ones, and maybe sounds a bit more modern. So, which is a double-edged sword, kind of, because for some people, especially like older guys, it might feel like only some of the songs are like in the same kind of style as the previous, like more power metallic records. This album is less of a like power metal album, and I wouldn't call Arion power metal anymore. This is more modern approach, heavier songs, maybe for a younger audience in general, I guess, which was actually not that much intended, even though we wanted to do like a modern album, you know. But that's what happens, and basically, really like major difference also is that this album was mixed by Adam Nolly Getgood of Periphery, ex-Periphery, and he did a hell of a job, and that kind of has to do with that like modern approach. We wanted something else, you know, something, so someone who can like bring something else into this music, and it kind of worked out. So in conclusion, it's a more modern, heavier album with like lots of influences drawn here and there, you know, which but in my opinion it kind of works. And there's also that ear candy for those who like classic power metal, you know, those songs like I Don't Fear You and Break My Chains and stuff like that, which are less modern and more straightforward power metal. And that's kind of why I'm really happy for this album, because there's everything for like everyone, you know. So it's kind
There's
of nice.
a little bit of everything for everybody. And you
Exactly.
mentioned already like the evolution of the band and how different this album is from the previous records in terms of moving perhaps a little bit more away from power metal. Is it hard for you guys to evolve, to grow, to expand as a band, but still somehow stay connected with what got you to this point?
Yeah, well, I kind of can still hear, you know, those roots within this kind of new style of music that we're doing. You know, it's the like early influences are still there. It's kind of, you can hear it on those songs like Bloodline and stuff like that, because the symphonic elements are like really strong there, and the like Finnish sound is present. But it's just kind of, you know, the world is like moving really fast, you know, and the metal scene is changing like all the time, and we kind of follow that as well. And that's why we've kind of like started moving into more into this like you know, heavier direction, tuning guitars lower and shit like that. You know, it just happens naturally when you like keep your ears open. So, and the like really fundamental parts like melodies, you know, and maybe the lyrical style has changed quite a lot. Actually, it's more aggressive and more like personal actually nowadays than it used to be on Last of Us, for example. But yeah, the way I see this is actually that Last of Us was like the first album was like quite power metallic and like
Yeah,
quite
straightforward.
yeah, exactly. It was like really simple and like really Finnish sounding actually, like really Scandinavian, you know. And after that, Life Is Not Beautiful was kind of an experimental album, like which was kind of, you know, I'd say, you know, how do you say, that kind of a step towards this like really aggressive
Yeah,
and modern style.
like a bridge, if you will.
Exactly, bridge. Yeah, that's what I was going for. Thank you. And yeah, yeah, that's kind of how I see the evolution of Arion going. Uh, I'm not sure if it was like realized at the time when we were doing Life Is Beautiful that we are like it's gonna be a bridge album, you know. Like, but it happened, and I guess it might have been like really deep down that thought, you know, of that like evolution going there. I knew at the time that we are going towards something different, but I didn't know it was going to be something like this. But here we are.
You felt like it was going somewhere. You just wasn't exactly sure what the destination was going to be like.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know these songs back and forth. I mean, you created these babies of yours. So when you're putting them together for a track listing on an album, how much value do you give to the track listing, considering that now everybody listens to albums on Spotify, on Shuffle, all of these things? Do you pay a lot of attention to it? It's something that plays a role when you're putting an album together?
You mean like the track list as like
Yeah, like the order of
the order of songs? Yeah, yeah, get that. Yeah, so basically, it's been a really important thing for us and for me, like always on each album. But for example, on this album, it actually had a little less value than previously. It was like, for example, I just didn't experiment on the like track listing that much on this album because it felt like a little bit less important maybe, but there's all I kind of see that this album and all our albums kind of follow the same kind of concept when it comes to that. There are like more of those like modern and maybe like you know, like more commercial songs, if you may, and in the very beginning of the album, and it gets a little bit more experimental and maybe sometimes even less metal towards the like end of the album, and that's the way we kind of like it. For some people, of course, it doesn't work. I've seen your review actually, which was actually really nice. I like it a lot. The review was like really nice, but yeah, I know for some people, for example, like ending the album with a ballad or something like that doesn't work always. But I'd say there is emphasis on that track listing, but on this album less than previously.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. That makes sense. How do you feel that this album overall plays like? Is this an album that has a fluid approach from your perspective? It's an album that changes from track to track, and how do you feel all of these pieces coming together? Is this an album that you like people to listen to it in its from first song to last song, or you feel like this album kind of plays itself, doesn't matter how you play it, shuffle, front to back, back to front, it's irrelevant?
That's a good question because I kind of like to think of each Arion album and this one as well, like as going from the start to beginning, and I don't know, start from the start to ending, you know, and that's how this album is meant to be listened as, you know, because it's like I like to listen to it that way, you know, and in my opinion, it like really works that way as well because there's the diversity going on like all the time, but you mentioned that shuffling and thing, you know, and it kind of I feel like this album actually works like really good on shuffle as well because it's not like that dependent on the like concept of the track listing, you know. It's not very dependent on that, unlike some albums, you know, which are like some progressive albums like Dream Theater shit like that, you know, which really supposed to be listened from the start to the ending. But this album like works on shuffle, but it's meant to be listened as like you know, in that order it's arranged in. So that's my answer.
The first record you guys released, I felt like we already said it. It feels very straightforward, that power metal sound, which then puts a lot of emphasis on the guitars. The guitars are kind of driving the experience of the music. What do you feel is the motor, the driving force on this record?
That actually sounds like really weird to me because it's like I personally don't like the guitars in the first album. It's actually I don't like the guitar tone on the first album especially, and I feel like the guitars are just like really, I'm not saying back, but they are like really thin, and I'm not really happy with them. And on this album, it's actually, in my opinion, it's like really strong guitar wise. It's like and that's what people have mostly been like saying about this album. It's like really guitar driven and like really riff heavy, lots of solos and stuff like that. So it's like
the solos are incredible, by the way. Like I want to congratulate you on that. Like absolutely outstanding. If there's one thing you can walk away with this album, if you're a fan of guitar playing, is with the solos. Outstanding.
That's really nice to hear. Yeah, lots of emphasis put on that. But yeah, it's like personally, and in within our band, we kind of feel like that this is a guitar-heavy album, and it's kind of interesting that it doesn't translate like that for like some other people. It kind of sounds strange to me, but maybe it's like that. It's kind of of course there's like lots of stuff happening on our mixes. They're like super busy mixes. There's like so much orchestration, so much synths, so much vocals. Like seriously, like 100 tracks of vocals on it. So it's like really heavy mixes. So you might, if you have a conservative ear, and I don't mean you, I mean like
In general.
someone.
Yeah.
It might feel like the guitar is drowning or something like that, because if you're used to listening like guitar based drums, it might feel different, but in our opinion it's a guitar heavy album. So
And how much work did you put on the guitar specifically coming into the album? Is this something that you wanted from the start to have that emphasis on it, like the solos, for example? Like how much work did you put into the solos coming into the record?
yeah, like lots of work, like because kind of on Life is Not Beautiful I kind of felt like I had accidentally kind of left those guitar solos like in a minor role, and I didn't like that. And on this album, it was like really easy to write, so there was like lots of energy left to put into like those like fine candies, those like details. And that's kind of on those kind of albums you can kind of like really work on those guitar solos, which are not the thing that will save an album, if it's bad. But when an album's like really good and you feel like really confident and you feel like it's been written, there's not much work left on those like fundamentals, you can like really put emphasis on those guitar solos, and then they're gonna like really work. And that's kind of what it like reflects from. And for like rhythm guitars there was like heavy amounts of work put into them. Like we used like many different guitars, so many combinations of amplifiers, like and so much playing hours, like seriously, to like make them as perfect as they can be. And so it kind of sounds funny, because personally I even think that when you put so much work into something, it has to be like really present. On Metallica album it's like really important how good the guitars are, because there are 4 instruments, so it's like, but in our mix there are like hundreds of instruments. So it's kind of like it's kind of like just our way of doing things. We like do everything like on like full power, we put our everything into everything, and there's just so much of like stuff, so it's kind of, I don't know, it doesn't invalidate things, but it's like, it kind of sounds funny.
The amount of work that you put into the guitars, is that because you were not happy with how the guitars sounded on that first album, and that thing still kind of bothers you a little bit, so you wanted this album to be absolutely solid on that perspective?
No, I wouldn't say that. It's like I'm not ashamed of those guitars. I'm just like maybe it's just because it's been like 7 years from that album. So it's like and I was like 17, 18 at the time. So you hear it differently now, and I'm kind of like these days. It kind of sounds like I just personally I feel like I play so much better now. So it's like it was important back then. We put so much work into them as well. But for example, I'm just able to provide people with just like way better guitar playing these days. That's kind of how I feel like. And not ashamed of those guitars. Just it's guitars are just so important part of an Arion album that we work on them as much as we can. On Life is Beautiful there were like way more fundamental things to solve even when recording the album. So it was like really difficult to, for example, focus on the solos. It was like they just had to be in the minor role because there were like lyrics and stuff like that to be solved even during the recording. So it was like it was messy. It's not a bad album, but that kind of, those details kind of start to be missing when you have that kind of situation where you have to solve the fundamentals at the point.
Yeah,
So
you got to handle the bigger problems.
Exactly, like vocals and stuff like that. Yes.
I have one last question for you, and that is, now that the album is out, the feedback has been great. What do you guys do? I mean, there's not a lot of possibilities to play shows to really support the album, to give the album the support that it needs. Are you guys planning on anything like what's the road ahead for the band?
Yeah, well, exactly. That's like really unfortunate that it's like really hard to support the album right now. It's like basically we're like running out of ideas for social media like all the time because there's just no shows. You know, you just can't post every day like shit like, you know, I'm missing this, you know, and posting a picture of the crowd or something like that. It's like someone maybe will go on just talking about like being creative, but I don't believe in that anymore. It's just this is the way it is. We just you know we just try our best to kind of connect with the fans with quizzes and shit like that, you know, like gallops or stuff like that, and posting occasionally like as frequently as possible. So it's just really unfortunate. We're gonna tour later, of course, and there are plans of an European tour, for example, and our American debut as well, which was cancelled because of COVID, and we were like really waiting for that. It was like really a shame, but there are plans for stuff, but what can you do right now?
Yeah, they have to wait. Well, I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys on this side of the Atlantic in North America at some point in time, hopefully sooner rather than later. I miss live music, and I would be very excited to see you guys tour on this side of the planet. I just want to thank you for your time. Really, thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. It was an absolute pleasure. I know the album is out, but I'm still going to wish you best of luck with it, because you know, the sales don't end on the day that the album comes out. The sales continue.
Exactly. So, right, seriously, thank you, man. Like, really interesting questions and like really good insight on the album. I
Thank you.
thank you for that.
All the best. Stay healthy out there. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.